G'day guys, welcome back. My name is Wildkard. Thank you for watching my content, I really do appreciate it. You are here today because it's Wednesday and it's time to read some rugby news. So first up, Super Rugby round 7, I think it was last week. There was a bye round, only 4 games to play. Some interesting results that came out of the weekend. First up, Crusaders beat the Moana Pacifica at home. I was very excited for the game at halftime because Moana Pacifica was leading the Crusaders. And Crusaders looked much more polished, much better in the second half. Moana Pacifica was just under the pumps and then eventually leading to their downfall. But yeah, Crusaders had a slow start and you almost feel like there could have been an upset in the making there. But yeah, wasn't the case. Second game of the evening on Friday night, the Reds hosted the Brumbies at Suncorp. This was a really poor performance by the Reds once again. The Reds was really hung in there. In the first half, it was swing for swing, tick for tack in the first half between the two teams, and then second half, the Brumbies just really outclassed the Reds. Bit of a discipline issue for the Reds, but overall, it just looked like a completely outclassed by the Brumbies, which is, I think this is the biggest margin between the two teams for so many years now. Like the game has been pretty close between the two sides. It was really disappointing to see such a huge margin. And also, this was the first time the Brumbies beat the Reds at Suncorp in Brisbane since 2015. So yeah, not the best results that the Reds fan are looking for. And the next up on Saturday, we had the Highlanders versus the Hurricanes. And Highlanders had a slow start to their season, but then they kind of kicked into form in the last couple of games. So yeah, they're really kind of I was expecting the Highlanders to potentially, put a big shift against the Hurricanes, especially considering this was at home for the Highlanders. But not the big names, the big gun, Geordie Barrett was just a bit too good overall. Highlanders lacked a little bit of, lacked a little bit of a good decision maker at 10. So then even at 12, the Geordie Barrett plays 12. So yeah, the decision making on the field for the Highlanders is just lacking a little bit in comparison to the Hurricanes. And yeah, Hurricanes, nice easy win, 29 points to 14 over the Highlanders. Finally, the last game of the week in Melbourne in front of an empty stadium. I was surprised to see how lackluster the show up was in the stadium, considering the Blues was the runners up last year with the most popular franchise in New Zealand, basically. Against the Rebels, who has been a team that's been doing quite well this season. Really it was a really poor show up. But regardless, the Rebels was in the game again, going toe to toe with the Blues for about the first half before Beauden Barrett really just kind of decided to put his boots back on, I guess, and didn't miss his kicks. I mean, I think he missed a couple, but didn't forget to put the ball down over the try line like he did last week. Yeah, and steered the Blues for an easy, soul-crushing win over the Rebels, 54 points to 17. Yeah, so obviously coming up this weekend, there's a big game coming up. That's the Hurricanes will be playing against the Chiefs, top of the table clash. And this will be for the All Blacks jerseys. This will be for all the marbles. This will be played in Wellington. I'm really looking forward to that. The kickoff will be a bit interesting time. It'll be at lunchtime for Australia. So I think it's it'll be 2 p.m. I think for New Zealand. So it's like a lunchtime kickoff in Wellington because of some lighting issues. They're trying to install new lights that wasn't installed properly or something, but there was some issues with the lights at the stadium, so you'll be played at lunchtime in Australia and 2 p.m. for New Zealand. Obviously, with such a good run in the Hurricanes at the moment, the head coach, Jason Holland, has confirmed that he's had some discussions with the new All Blacks head coach, Razor Robinson, who's currently coaching the Crusaders, that he's potentially going to be considered for a role within for the All Blacks going into next year after Sir Fozzie relinquishes his place. So obviously this weekend as well, there's a game that's going to be played in Samoa. So it'll be the Reds playing against Moana Pacifica in Samoa. This will be a pretty huge game. Reds is going to be going there with a few injuries and a red card. So Liam Wright and Isaac Henry are both out, are both kind of, key players for the Reds. And also Angus Blythe got a red card and as a resulting a very dangerous tackle on the weekend. So he will be out for quite some. So if you basically knock this guy out, he'll be out for a number of weeks. And then we have the Reds, obviously having suffered a few losses now this season. Brad Thorne is once again being talked about potentially getting sacked, and maybe talking about. He has talked about last few weeks about he wants to take a break from rugby, and obviously the team hasn't been performing, so there's potentially a big question mark of the future of Brad Thorne and how he is, whether or not he's going to keep his role at the Reds. I just want to show this article here because this is a really interesting picture. It looks like Fraser McReight is tackling himself. Yeah. Is that, that's the same person. That is the same person. Fraser McReight is tackling himself in a Hurricanes jersey. Okay? So, I don't know what's going on here. There's a glitch in the Matrix. But, yeah. Let me know what's happening here. But I think there's maybe Agent Smith will be knocking my door soon. But, yeah. And then, some news in New Zealand now. Obviously, with a lot of big names going overseas, there has been some real concern in New Zealand about the future of the quality of Super Rugby and the quality of the All Blacks team. Because, with Beauden Barrett and Richie Mo'unga both going to be going overseas at the end of the season, there was a lot of concern for New Zealand rugby in the pundits, within the pundit circles. And then the good news for New Zealand rugby is Somasani Takiaho, I think the best hooker in the world right now, and has potential to get even better. One of the most physical, specimen on the field at the moment. Very exciting to see him signing with the New Zealand Rugby till 2027. So that's 2 World Cup cycles locked in. So Eddie Jones obviously had a Wallabies squad selected for a training camp last week, and he has obviously left out a few names like Noah Lolosio, Harry Wilson, and who's the big one? Tate McDermott. A lot of these guys that people kind of were expecting to be selected were not given a chance. So obviously Eddie Jones in his own podcast kind of came out and explained some of the selections. So he obviously talked about, building towards the World Cup as you would expect. And he wanted to, there was a key indicator that he kind of talks about when it comes to selecting players. He kind of talked about a study that was done in Great Britain, where the most successful Olympians in Great Britain are the people who have some kind of adversity in their background, and then the people who are able to kind of rise above their adversity and get themselves to the top of the sporting world through their own hard work is the kind of people that end up succeeding at the Olympics. So with that being said, Eddie Jones is looking at players with that quality, not just being athletically gifted. He wants to find players that are mentally strong, who has, not just mentally strong as well as athleticism. That's the players that he thinks is going to win the World Cup for Australia. He thinks he's going to be the kind of players that's going to bring success to an international test team, which I completely agree, by the way. And there's a really key thing that he talked about here, and I think this is something that I really hope that he sticks to it. Is that he doesn't care about players that he doesn't care about the players who makes the big run and has a rest. He says that does so what that does is captures the attention of the commentators. So the commentators will praise you, but then you are not actually pulling your weight off when you're required outside of these big plays. So there was a few names I can think of in the Wallaby teams I really thought is kind of especially I thought Tom Wright is probably the one that comes to mind the most. He's really, really good at attacking. He makes good runs, but when it comes to defense, he's just really not stepping up a little bit. So I think that that is something that Tom Wright will be an issue that Eddie Jones might want to stamp out from Tom Wright. And also the final comment for Eddie Jones from his podcast was that at international test rugby level, you don't coach skills. It's too late to teach you how to pass the ball, right? It's about picking the skillful players with toughness, and that's going to be the best player, right? And it's not about in the test rugby if you're just going to show up and make a big play and then that's it for you for the game. That's not going to be good enough to be successful in Test rugby. So yeah, players like Michael Hooper, who don't really make big plays, but does all the hard work behind the scenes to ensure the successful team. That's a player that Eddie Jones is looking for, not for someone to come in, walk around the field, and just wait for the ball to get to them, and they do like a big run and score a try and look good on the highlight reel. That's not someone that Eddie Jones is looking for, essentially what he's saying here. Next up, we got a big name here. Nemani Nadolo has announced that this will be the last year he playing rugby. He'll be retiring. I mean, everybody knows the Waratahs is the retirement village. Last year we've had, what's his name? We've had Jamie Roberts, the Welsh, British and Irish Lions, and he retired here at Waratahs. So Nadolo is going to retire at the Waratahs as well. The retirement village appears to be nowadays. But anyway, the European Championship had their quarterfinals played last week. La Rochelle defeated Saracens 24 points to 10. Again, the bane of the British La Rochelle has been, under O'Gara has been quite impressive in recent years. Exeter beat the Stormers 42 points to 17. There was a lot of grievances out of that game where people felt like the Stormers weren't performing to their best because they were traveling like back and forth between Europe and South Africa in like very tight scheduling, and it was really noticeably burnt out the team. And then they have Toulouse beat the Sharks 54 points to 20. And finally, Leinster 55 points over Leicester in the final quarterfinals, see themselves through to the semi-finals. Some news from Leinster. So Johnny Sexton, there was a lot of hope that he was going to come back to play potentially the last couple games for Leinster before he kind of rides over in the sunset. But it was revealed this week that due to his injury, he's probably done for Leinster. He's not going to be he's not going to be playing for Leinster anymore. His career is over with Leinster. He's not going to be able to play. Also, Leinster has a few injuries going into the semi-finals. Ryan Baird and James Lowe are both potentially injured going into the going to semi-finals. And then finally in Ireland, James Ryan and Josh Van der Fleer have both extended their contracts. James Ryan to 2025 and Josh Van der Fleer 2026. The player of the year, the best open side flanker in the world. Big names staying in Ireland. Well needed for Irish rugby. Like already reported, England is really struggling. Really had a struggle against La Rochelle on the weekend. But the big blow came out of this game is Billy Vanapola. One of the players that Eddie Jones was really high on for England rugby has twisted his knee out of this game, and he's probably going to be in doubt for the Rugby World Cup. So in going to Wales now, more exodus is happening in Wales. There was a contract between the players and not the players, between the club and the Welsh Rugby Union. That was kind of like that's confirmed. I think it was last week, but it wasn't enough to keep all the players in Wales. Obviously, the pay is probably a bit lower. So big names, obviously, we saw like what's his name? Will Rowlands left earlier this year. So the latest one that's leaving Wales is Dylan Lewis. Huge prop for Wales, and that scrummaging is very, very important for Wales. So yeah, he's going to be going to the Harlequins in the English Premiership. Next up, Malu Tuilangi is going to be, again, there was a bit of a saga going on with his contract. There was some talks that he might be leaving the Sales Shark because obviously they're not going to be able to afford his, not going to be able to afford him anymore. He wants to potentially go play in Japan for more money and maybe even playing for, France. But yeah, the latest update is that obviously the Premiership has a the salary cap. The latest update is that after offering Tuilangi an insulting contract, they have finally squeezed out a few bucks out of their contract. Sorry, out of their a salary cap to be able to offer him a bigger contract, and hopefully this most likely he will stay at the Sales Sharks. Next up, we go to South Africa now. So there was some talks that Nigel Owens was going to join Rassie Erasmus in the quest to conquer the Rugby World Cup in France this year. And as a referee consultant, the news kind of like dragged on for a little bit, and then it was revealed that last week Nigel Owens has declined Rassie's request to be a referee consultant, and he basically decided that he's already got too much work to do at the farm. He's already got a role at the Wales Rugby Union, the URC as a referee coaching consultant. There's like a referee academy that he's running, and also he's as a consultant with Rugby World Cup already. So he's already doing a lot of work in rugby that he doesn't really have the time. And also he's also talked about revealed that he's going to be adopting a child. So that's a lot of work and exciting times for him. He simply just don't have the time to travel with the Springboks with so much stuff in plate for him at the moment. Yeah. So more news out of the South African camp is that Eben Esmeth has a shoulder injury, which might see him out for the Rugby Championship. And it's kind of like a race for him to get back for the Rugby World Cup. Should be okay for the Rugby World Cup, but for him to be featured at the Rugby Championship, it's going to be a tight return for him. So yeah, it's pretty huge. He is like the one that the Springboks never rests. He basically, even the Springboks put on their B team, Eben Esmeth will be playing. Yeah, he is that important. He is the man. He's the man of the Springboks team. So best lock in the world, obviously one of the best locks ever in the history of the world. And yeah, with him being injured, it's going to be a very scary. I mean, the Rugby Championship it's not really like that big of a deal for the Springboks. I think it's really important for him to be healthy and not to push too early to get back and try to play in the Rugby Championship and re-injury the shoulder. So it's really important for him to just rest up and get ready for the Rugby World Cup. That's a bit of a sweat for the Springboks. Next up, the Francois Steyn. Yeah, potentially not going to be able to make for the Rugby World Cup as well, looking like he suffered a knee injury in the Currie Cup game playing for the Cheetahs, and he's going to be out for 2 to 3 months. So yeah, it could potentially means that he's just not going to be selected. Like even if he will be like healthy for the Rugby World Cup, he's just probably not going to be like haven't had enough game time to be ready to be selected, especially this late in his career at 35 years of age. Yeah, Francois Steyn. Also in South Africa now, a former South African coach, what's his name? Ian McIntosh has passed away, and for South Africa. And finally, Joe Mala. We had to talk about this. Some of you guys were talking about this incident. So yeah, so allegedly Joe Mala. You know, we know Joe Mala. He's a big POS, and once again he was cited to be doing a bit of he's doing a bit of part-time job as a prostate examiner once again. Obviously he had famously examined with his hand of Alan Wynne-Jones' prostate live on TV against Wales, right? Whilst he was playing for England in 2019, I think it was. And again, he was found to tickle another man's nether region when playing against. Let's just see if you can watch this video. But yeah, he, once again, and this time was Dion Fury. He kind of reached behind him and kind of like went around his leg, and Dion Fury was not happy. A bit of a prostate exam for him in the rocks. So yeah, once again, Joe Mala. I'm sure he's probably has a great career for him after rugby, become a prostate examiner. Very good pay from my understanding. And yeah, you just gotta put some gloves on. Make sure that hygiene is very important. Don't do it without gloves like you do in rugby. But outside of that, he could make a huge amount of money, a huge career as a after post rugby, work for Joe Mala. Anyway, guys, that's the news for this week. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you guys this weekend for Super Rugby. And yeah, have a good one. See you guys later. Cheers.